ladies, let's start with a story from the Daily Mail. And actually, I read this in the Gulf Times. So we have a diverse range of news sources here, but it's all about the WHO chief possibly facing genocide charges. We have heard that a Nobel Peace Prize nominated economist has called for the Director General to be prosecuted, and he has actually filed a complaint at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The economist has claimed that Tedros was a crucial decision maker in relation to security service actions that include killing, arbitrary detention and torturing of Ethiopians. Liz, we mustn't forget that Tedros's appointment was highly controversial, and he was rebuked early on for wanting to honour brutal dictator Robert Mugabe.
Yeah, Rita, I think one of the wonders of the world at the moment is that this guy still has a job. Even before presiding over this massive debacle, the pandemic, and being completely exposed as Beijing's puppet throughout this entire year, what's really exposed Tedros's resume is this very year. He's been a known member of the Communist Party. He served a Marxist dictator back in Ethiopia. During his time as health minister in Ethiopia, he's been accused of covering up 3 cholera epidemics. This guy is dodgy, dodgy, dodgy. And it comes as no surprise that it was once he had those roles in the ministry in Ethiopia that they saw Chinese money coming in support of him. It's also known that the CCP bent over backwards to get Tedros into the position that he currently holds. So I've got to say, as hair-raising as these new accusations are brought against Tedros, certainly not surprised.
No, you're absolutely right with everything you said there. And let's not forget, at the start of this pandemic, he just repeated China's lies. The World Health Organization was repeating China's lies, and they went out of their way to defend that regime. And you look at the country in the world that has handled this crisis better than any other, and that's Taiwan. And the World Health Organization won't even allow them membership because they don't want to offend China. We could have learnt so much from Taiwan. We could have saved a lot of lives if they were part of the World Health Organization. So are you expecting anything further to happen from these? These are fairly serious allegations, but this is a very powerful man with very powerful friends.
Yeah, that's right, Rita. I mean, look, I hope that it's not the case. I think we all do. I mean, he's in charge of who, but you know, he's being clouded with a lot of doubt this year. He was praising China for being transparent. Yeah. He allowed them to open up their wet markets again. That was fine. I mean, the whole world has suffered because of this, and I think he's handled it very badly, and praising China is something that he should not have done. So I'm very concerned, like I'm sure many people are, with these allegations. So let's see what happens.
I think if I'm remember this correctly, he's the first non-medical doctor to lead.
That's right.
The WHO. So that appointment is one that was backed strongly by China. Now, I love this story. The Sydney Morning Herald reports that New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has strongly rebuked Greta Thunberg after the teenage climate activist accused New Zealand of not doing enough to deliver on its climate action promises. This week, Thunberg tweeted the following about New Zealand's climate change policy. She said, in other words, the government has just committed to reducing less than 1% of the country's emissions by 2025. Text explaining New Zealand's so-called climate emergency declaration. This is, of course, nothing unique to any nation. That's what Greta contributed on Twitter. And New Zealand's very progressive PM did not take that lying down. She takes climate alarmism very seriously and was not happy about Greta's criticism. And her response was, if that was the sum ambition of any government, then that would be worthy of criticism. It is not our sum ambition, and it's not the totality of our plans on climate change. Liz, isn't it wonderful to have the Prime Minister of New Zealand responding to a teenager, or I guess probably responding to the teenager's dad? Isn't Greta's dad handle her social media accounts?
Two things here, Rita. Firstly, I actually think it would have been good if she'd have gone ignored. Here we are at a time when world economies are bleeding out. They are suffering like never before, and we've got this 17-year-old holding essentially world leaders ransom over Twitter and other means to her ridiculous zero emissions by yesterday demands. She's 17. What does she know of running a country? What does she know of running an economy? I find it utterly bizarre, really, although I don't blame Ardern for biting back, but I find it utterly bizarre that she even gets clapback from these world leaders. It's just utterly bizarre, I find, although with over 4 million followers, you can understand why Ardern felt the need.
Yeah, maybe she was being trolled by Greta's army and she had to respond. But, yeah, Liz does make the point that this is, after all, a teenager. She's not a scientist. She doesn't have any unique perspectives about either climate or New Zealand's economy and policies. But she does have significant power. She's addressed the UN. She has meetings with world leaders, much bigger countries than New Zealand. So you can't understate her influence. And the fact that she is a child still, under 18, basically means you can't criticise her either. So it makes her even more powerful.
I've got to say, Rita, these are two of my most least favourite people. I think if we just threw Meghan Markle in the mix, we'd have the trifecta. I mean, seriously, we've got little Miss Goody Two-Shoes in Thunberg criticising the other little Miss Goody Two-Shoes in Ardern. And Ardern's known to come up with lots of these, policies that she says she's going to implement. You've written a lot about her social housing that she didn't do. She seems to be all, come up with these policies, but when it comes to enforcing it, it's another thing.
Well, yeah, implementing actual policies are a bit more difficult than just grandstanding about them. Now, we began the show by speaking about the language policing happening in the Victorian public sector, but very different in the UK, with the government scrapping unconscious bias trainings because it's ineffective. That's good news, Sophie, because as we've seen in Victoria today, front page of the Herald Sun, you've got public service told not to use terms like husband and wife and he and she, and to use non-gendered terms, and always ask what people's pronouns are. I mean, really, I think that in this instance, the British have got the right idea.
Finally, the British have got something right. I mean, I don't know what Boris Johnson is doing over there. He's been such a disappointment. But seeing what happened in Victoria today, I mean, Rita, we both live in Melbourne. What a joke. We're used to this stuff now. Liz, be grateful that you don't live here. But I'm actually glad to see the UK saying this. Finally something is coming out of there that makes sense, because the way Boris Johnson's running that country, I'm very disappointed. He's let a lot of Conservative voters down. He's not working for the people that voted for him.
No, I don't think he ever came back from COVID the same. Mind you, he was always pretty flimsy before COVID. Liz, one of the psychologists, Patrick Forscher, he examined more than 400 studies on unconscious bias training and concluded there was little evidence of a positive impact, even 24 hours after someone had taken the course. Why are we inflicting this on workforces around Australia?
It's just utterly ridiculous, Rita. This is not something that you can achieve through a course. And also the question remains, exactly what are you trying to achieve? You talk about, getting rid of unconscious bias. What does that even mean? So first you've got to make me aware, of my inner racism, as the ABC is always trying to convince us of. And then you're going to eradicate it. As I sit in a course, I'm going to be made aware that firstly I am racist, or whatever the ist may be, fill in the blank, and you're going to eradicate it via a course. I mean, this is literal nonsense. It is complete and utter nonsense. We've got Victoria drinking the Kool-Aid, as Sophie's already pointed out, at a time, again, how is this even on the agenda in Victoria right now? How is it even a blip on the radar in terms of what is important for that state at this particular point in time? This is painful. This is utterly painful.
Well, this stuff, I mean, it's not just on the agenda, it's embraced. We've got now an anti-conversion bill. And again, these programs always have wonderful names because everyone is against anti-conversion. Why would anybody would try to convince someone who's homosexual or lesbian to be anything else? I don't think anybody would tolerate that. But under the guise of this anti-conversion bill, Sophie, they're redefining gender. So that's going to have all sorts of implications, and it will really impact the ability of parents to question some of the self-identification of their children. So if you have a child who at a very young age, 12 or 13 or 14 or 15, says, I'm in the wrong body and I want to start taking hormones and testosterone, the parent really is in a bind. To challenge that is going to cause them some issues.
That's right, Rita. I mean, I'm more concerned overall on what the Victorian government is focused on at the moment. And we have serious, unemployment issues. We've got debt climbing here. We've got the largest amount of people on JobKeeper. We've got serious economic issues, and we're worrying about other issues such as how we address people in the public service. And in my view, the public service, they should be back at work. They're not back at work until next year in the office. We've got very big issues and we're worrying about these things on the sidelines, which, I think are side issues right now. We've got bigger problems to deal with.
There are side issues, but I think it's important for the mainstream to get interested in these issues, because I think too often you just go, oh, that's just a bit of nonsense. We don't care about that. But then it becomes the norm and it becomes completely normalised and the accepted form of behaviour. So you've got to take an interest, and I think too often Conservatives kind of just don't want to get involved in these things. They kind of think it's a leftist pursuit. Now, Sophie, I want to ask you about interest rates. Not great news for homeowners. There's some predictions that with the economic recovery post-COVID that the rates are going to go up. What do you think? Do you think that's likely? There's billionaire investors coming back and predicting that's going to happen. What are your feelings on this? And do you think people have overextended themselves with their home loans?
Well, look, we had the RBA governor come out earlier this year, or only in recent months, saying that interest rates are going to stay low for at least the next 3 years. So that'll, see us out until 2024.
But that's not a guarantee. I mean, we've got a billionaire investor, Alex Weisslitz, saying that the stock market's going to continue to grow, and he's predicting that interest rates are going to rise a lot faster than people are anticipating. He may be entirely wrong,
of course,
but I think we are in this mood that, we're just going to have low interest rates, free money pretty much for years to come, but that's no guarantee.
Absolutely not. And I think we've seen entering into the pandemic, we had nearly 1 million loans that were put on deferral. Now that's come right down and those deferrals end at the end of March. But it showed that a lot of people were overextended, and when something went wrong, such as the pandemic hit, they weren't prepared at all. So
are you concerned about those deferrals ending around March and JobKeeper ending around the same time? I mean, is that going to be a bit of a double whammy?
I think it will be a real concern. Look, the banks have told me recently, I think there's 100,000 or 200,000 loans still deferred, so it's come down a lot. I'm a bit sceptical about the figures, I must say. We still have a lot of people hurting out there, but once JobKeeper ends, the truth will be told whether these businesses will still actually be functioning, because really they're on that financial life support, and once that stops, can they survive on their own? So the truth will be told in April and from then on.